Here's another old story of history, something our elders told us, that they could remember a time gone by, hard time, sharecropping during the Depression. Well, the first thing, for you that don't know anything about it, what is sharecropping? Well, it's just what the word says it is. It's sharecropping. And what it means is just people sharing the crops that they helped grow off the landowner's land. So he furnished the land and the seed most of the time, and you just done the labor and growing the crop. And you would bounty your percentage that you agreed upon to work the crop. This is how they made their living. Now, sharecropping come into its own right at the end of the Civil War. They abolished slavery, thank the Lord. All these big plantations used to have all these thousands of acres, but now they have nobody to work them. So most of them went bankrupt, couldn't afford to pay nothing. But a lot of them was divided up, and some still survived, but most of them were gone. So this is what started sharecropping. There was still a great demand for all the vegetables and commodities raised on these places, but somebody had to grow it, like corn, all this tobacco, big demand for tobacco throughout the country and throughout the world. And all this beef cattle, all the livestock, all the poultry, big demand. And all the hogs, pigs, from bacon and stuff, hams, still big commodity had to be supplied. But the biggest demand still was cotton. This is where all the clothes is made from, all your fabrics, big demand. So they had to have labor. So they come up with an ideal of just sharecropping. And they would share the people that does the labor to help grow all these commodities, whatever it might be on this big land, that they would share it. And they would get paid a portion of it on an agreement they agreed upon at the end of the year, the harvest time. Some were good deals, some were not. But this is how sharecropping got started. Now, after the slavery was abolished, a lot of these families packed up and moved off, went north to the cities, other locations. But a lot didn't. This is all they've known, generation after generation. Since their ancestors were brought into this country, this is all they know. But at least they was free people. And they was going to give it a try by themselves. At least they would get paid for their efforts. They could do what they want to do. If they had to move, they could quit and move. But this is what they wanted. So some of them stayed and tried this way of life. Now, back in the early 1900s, turn of the century back then, this is the percentage amount of what farms just in the southeast United States that was sharecropping at the time. But back during the Depression, it was even more. So this is how all this sharecropping got started and how it works. Now, as tough as things was back then, the stock market crashed in 1929, and it was just a chain reaction from there. Banks closed, companies shut down, huge layoffs, people were out of work, and I mean it's just a chain reaction. Thousands of men would line up to find a couple positions in a job. Thousands. Unemployed. Over a quarter of the country was unemployed. No work. No matter where they were, where they went. They was just everybody looking for jobs. There was none to be had. It was hard times. Living in a city, working in these factories. And to beat that, there was a drought, a dust bowl, they called it, out there in the Midwest, Southwest, from the way they plowed their fields and a combination of a drought. One thing led to another. The drought just set all this dirt up in the air, storm after storm. And people tried to tough it out, but it just covered them. It's like a desert. Destroyed their farm. Time after time. A lot of people died from this dust too. So they lost about everything. They just couldn't hang on there. You had to feed your family. So a lot of people, between the Dust Bowl and the Depression, losing their jobs, losing their farms, couldn't pay for nothing, they was on the road, living out of their car, looking for work, looking for a place to feed their family, put a roof over their head. These were hard times. You could talk to the old elders, they could tell you every bit of this. Hard times. People used to having something, didn't have nothing. They lost it all. They was on the road. Time was desperate, especially when you got hungry kids. So they would take about anything they could find. And these farms and sharecropping, that was part of it. Now these people were tickled to death to get on these sharecropping farms. Some worked part-time and moved on through, and some stayed. There wasn't much money in it, but you could feed your family. And some of these were big families. The man could get out and work. He could provide a living for them. It's better than having nothing at all. And this old farmland, it didn't care what color you was plowing it. It didn't matter at all. These people worked hard. And it didn't matter what color you was, an old mule in front of you, behind you. It didn't matter. If you were willing to work this land, you could survive. And there wasn't no age, certain age back then. If you're big enough to walk around, get around, you helped the family any way you could, even out in the fields. It didn't matter what color you was, what race you was. You all worked together as one. Even the old. Everybody pulled their own weight what they could. And what they couldn't, the family covered for it. And they worked these fields together. Hard day's work, sun up, sun down. But they depended on each other. These family, this was a way of life for a lot of people. This is all they knew. And they provided and worked together as one to make it. Hard times. But they survived. Many a day out in these old fields. They didn't have a penny to their name between them, but they had each other. And one thing for sure, if they was willing to work at it, they wasn't going to go hungry. They had something to eat. Might not have had much, but they had food. And they thanked the Lord for it. And they lived in little places like this. Some of them were more like shacks, and some are what? According to where you who you was sharecropping for. Some had some pretty good places, and some didn't. Hard times in this old farmland across America. Times have gone by. Like I said, some of them were just really ratty old shacks, but it was a roof overhead at the time when they had absolutely nothing. And they made it. Some places, the landowner had the landowner had places he would rent out to them that they would pay up at the end of the year when they got their portion of the crop. Time's gone by, but they survived. Now most of these farms still used mules and horses instead of tractors. This was the tractor of the day for a long time. And they worked these mules. They know them by name, and the mules know them too. But that was just part of farm life. And I just wondered myself sometimes, how many miles these old mules and these plows and the old guy working the plow, how many miles they walked in these old fields over time. But as time went on, they started mechanizing tractors on these farms. It sure helped out on labor too. And it increased production a little bit. Just took time. But it was hard and easier on the labor. Easy on labor. And like I said, it did increase production. Sharecropping tremendously. But they still used these mules and horses on the farm for a long time, and they still use them today. And the kids growed up. They were poor, but they didn't know it. This is all they knew. They grew up this way, and they grew up happy. And they'd run these fields that their parents worked, and they worked in too. Such beautiful country. But they didn't know they was poor. Now one thing about sharecropping, they can't, no matter how hard they work, they couldn't help the weather. Good years, they profited. Bad years, too much rain, not enough rain, it was hard on the crop. So some become indebted to the landowner, and it took them a couple years, if ever, to get caught up. But the best time of it was when things were right and harvest time come. They collected the bounty. And oh, did they collect it. This is when it really paid off all the hard work the family sacrificed for. And they'd divvy up all the crop, whatever it may be. Corn, taters, wheat, soybean, even tobacco. And when they all cashed it in, they all got their part. They had a good year, everybody was happy. All their hard work paid off. But things changed in the late 30s. World War II began. A lot of people left. They went for better jobs in the cities, factories, and a lot went to the military and never returned. Now these old farms, sharecropping if it goes on, it's a very rare thing. Most of these just little farms are slowly going away. They're still out there, and people still depend on them, but they're slowly going away as the generations pass. And our elders, what few are left, remember these hard times, sharecropping, the Depression, all these hard times. They remember them. So cherish your old people, your elders, before they're gone. Their stories are leaving us quick. They're a precious commodity, if anything else. And I hate to see them go. Their stories and their history, their wisdom is leaving us. So I want to thank y'all for watching these little videos of history. This is just the way it is in our rural areas. So I want to say, God bless every one of you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.